I am not the most frugal person. I love to spend a lot of money on things that I really care about, like travel. But I've realized certain frugal living habits can make my life a lot easier and allow me to spend money in areas I care about while also building financial freedom for myself and my family. So I've implemented a few frugal living habits in my own life, and they have made a world of difference. So today I'm going to share 10 of those frugal living habits that have made my life easier and allowed me to actually build a better financial foundation because I'm not spending a ton of money on areas that don't really matter that much. So let's talk about those frugal living habits, and maybe one of them could serve you and help you build more financial freedom in your own life. The first frugal living habit that I've implemented and has honestly changed our lives dramatically is learning to cook good food. So with this one, basically learning to cook at home instead of door dashing, going out to eat every day, going out to eat multiple times per day has saved us a lot of money. This has only amplified as we've had kids, and the bill to go out to eat has grown substantially. So instead of going out to eat that much, we actually cook a lot of our favorite things at home, and we've been able to really increase our skills here by learning a lot from YouTube and watching cooking shows and doing different recipes. So we can cook really good food. At least I can. And my husband's always been a great chef because he actually worked in the food industry and has been a chef at restaurants before. So like he's always been good. But I personally have had to implement this own frugal living habit in my life by learning how to cook and to cook well, to cook good food that we want to eat. And this has saved us so much money. We have spent way less on food in general because we go out to eat less, because we cook at home 6 nights a week. And that has been really a great way for us to save money. And it's something that did take a lot of work for me. I wasn't the best cook, honestly. The great thing about learning how to cook is that it's a skill. You might start out not knowing anything, but you can learn that skill and you can learn how to cook good food and you can improve over time as you do it more often. I'm a much better cook now that I cook very often than I was before when I would just do it sometimes and didn't have the strong skill set and experience to back it up. So learning how to cook can be fun, and it's also a great frugal habit that can save you a ton of money. Another frugal habit that I have implemented in my own life is intentionally increasing the quality of my life and also knowing when to stop. So being frugal does not mean that you never spend money. It means that you're very intentional about where you spend money in your own life, and you set limits on that spending so that it does not continue to snowball out of control. That is something that is a little bit different from the typical standard way of life where you say, I deserve it, and you spend whatever you want and you continue to increase it because you deserve it, and the quality of things and the expense of things can just go up forever. There's no end in sight for the consumerism and the ability to increase your quality of life. There's always a luxury product around the corner that you could spend your money on. And honestly, I have decided in certain areas of my life that I want to spend more money and I want to have better experiences. So I have decided intentionally that in certain categories, I'm going to spend more money. This for me looks like spending more money on the gym membership that I have because it's something that I will go to and I will use, but it's way more money than a lot of other people spend. But this ends up being a reasonable expense for me because I use it often. I get my money's worth, even though I'm spending more per month than like a $10 a month gym. It also looks like for me buying nicer quality clothes rather than going to get the fast fashion stuff or the stuff that, you know, kind of works for now but doesn't last or doesn't fit quite right, but it was cheap so I can buy more of it. I used to do a lot of that, but instead now I focus on quality items and I spend a little bit more upfront, but I'm getting a lot more use out of them in the long run. Spending more money on things that make your life better is really something that you should be doing. It doesn't mean you're not frugal. It means that you have focused in on the things that matter the most to you and you're able to spend money there and you can cut in other areas that don't matter. And this is a great way to do things so that you get the best life possible for yourself, but you're still able to save money, to pay off off your debt, to invest money for the future. You're able to find money in other areas and use that money frugally because you are spending in areas that have already increased your quality of life so much that you're really happy with the life that you're living. It's definitely a frugal living habit to know when to stop that increase in your quality of life, because you can definitely really quickly fall into a trap of increasing everything in every area of your life, and then you're overspending and you are spending more than your income. It's so easy to do that quickly. So the real key here is to actually just focus in on one or two areas where you're going to get the most impact with your money, and then kind of let the other ones sit there and think about it. And maybe in the future you do increase the quality of those parts of your life, but you know that it's not everything all at once. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, and you know when to stop and when to adjust and when to pull that back. The next habit that I have implemented in my own life that is super frugal is to always buy quality items. So this one is a little interesting because generally when you think of frugal, you often think of cheap, but that's not true. Frugal people are not necessarily cheap. Some can be, don't get me wrong, but being frugal means using your money to have the best option for you while also still being responsible financially. And being frugal can mean buying the best possible option, which can also be the most expensive option at the time. A lot of frugal people buy high quality items that will last them a long time. So they get a really, really good like cost per use of an item. And that is exciting because you buy something once, but you use it for a long time. So every time you use it, you're spending less and less per use on that item. And that's a very frugal way to look at things versus buying the cheapest thing possible and then it breaks or it wears out and then you have to buy another thing and then another thing. And at the end, you've spent 3 times what you would have spent on the quality item up front, and your cost per use is really high because you had to keep replacing the item. So instead of doing that, I personally like to invest in really quality items up front and then use them for a long time so that per use it is really inexpensive for me. And this is bled over into like almost all areas of my life, especially like clothes. I will buy a lot higher quality clothes now than I used to, and shoes. I buy really expensive shoes, honestly, but I get a lot of use out of them, and per use, it's not as expensive as when I was buying like $10 Walmart shoes, which also ended up costing me a lot of money in podiatrist bills. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to pay for quality things up front, so you're not spending more money on the back end because you chose the least expensive option just to be cheap. So that's kind of what that frugal living habit looks like in my life. The next frugal living habit that I personally do is to understand things before I seek help. So basically, I want to understand what the problem is, what I think it might cost, and what I can expect someone to ask of my money before I go seek help. So this can be like understanding what's wrong with my car or kind of figuring out what a problem in my home is before I seek out a professional. I kind of want a general understanding of what's wrong, what it might cost, and you can research anything these days. You can research almost anything online. There are professionals online that share problems, what they cost, what you might need to fix things. It is really easy to get a general understanding of what you're gonna spend to do something in life these days. And that is really helpful before you go seek out those professionals, because you want to know if you're getting a good deal, if you're getting a good price, or if you're being ripped off by someone that doesn't have the same ethical mindset as you do. So one of my own frugal habits is just to research things before I go spend a lot of money, or before I take something in to get a quote. If it's going to be over a couple $100s, I want to know a general ballpark of what that is. And this also looks like when you do take something somewhere, or when you do seek out professional help, you also get a second opinion. You get a couple different quotes. You make sure that you have kind of covered your bases and you understand what it actually should cost versus the first basic quote that you get from someone. And having a good understanding of things allows you to be frugal because you're making the best choice and you're not getting ripped off. You're not wasting money. You're making an informed decision, and being informed is a super frugal habit. The next frugal habit that I have implemented in my own life is finding a balance. Being frugal is not about never spending money. Being frugal is not about always spending the most money. Obviously, that's a given, but it's about finding the balance in your own life where you're not overspending, you're not underspending, you are spending what you need to get the best quality of life you can, while also keeping keeping an eye on your account balances, keeping an eye on your debt, keeping an eye on your net worth, keeping an eye on your retirement to know that you're going to have money to take care of you in the future. It's making sure that you are being aware of your whole financial picture and then finding the balance of spending kind of right in the middle where you're not overspending and sending yourself into debt, and you're not underspending where you're focused on only one day when you retire, because that is not promised. So you're finding a balance in the middle where you're able to enjoy your life, but you're still being really responsible. I think I've done this well personally. I don't live a life where I deprive myself of everything, but I do tell myself no sometimes. Sometimes I say not yet. Sometimes I look at a purchase that I really want and it's a not yet, it's a not right now. And that is definitely part of being frugal, is saying not at this current moment, but yes, eventually. Or saying, yes, now's the time. This is when I get to purchase this. I'm so excited. And then maybe you don't get to purchase something else. So kind of finding that balance of saying yes sometimes, saying no sometimes, and not overspending or underspending, because you're able to look at money and realize that you need to spend now, but you also need to save for the future. The next frugal habit that I personally have is avoiding debt. So debt is something that is controversial. Some people love debt. They love the leverage that you can get off debt. And some people hate debt. They feel like it's a burden. It's a mental burden. It is so stressful to be in debt. Some people want to pay off their debt immediately, whether it makes sense or not mathematically. It really just depends on your personality type on whether or not you can handle debt well mentally. But I personally find that the frugal habit of just avoiding debt is a really good one and something that I've implemented in my own life. I do have a mortgage, but I've decided not to take on other debts. I've decided that if I want something, I have to make sure I have the money first before I'm able to purchase it. I do use credit cards for the rewards points, and I just make sure that I am keeping an eye on them and I'm never going beyond what I can pay off, because I don't need to have a debt balance that carries over and charges me ridiculous amounts of interest. So that is one frugal habit that I personally have just really taken to heart, and I try to avoid debt whenever I can, except for, of course, home purchases. And if we did ever need a car and I had to take out an auto loan, that'd be fine. But in general, my ethos for my personal finances is just to avoid debt. Keep it simple. Debt is really normal in modern societies, and we have basically built a world where we all run on debt, and debt is really, really common. So it's easy to get into a situation where your debt is climbing and you're not even aware of it, and you end up with this huge amount of debt and you are struggling to get out of it. I've been there. It is not fun, and paying off debt is really hard to do. But that is why this frugal living habit is so important to me, and living a life where I'm aware of what debts I have and just generally avoiding debts has made life a lot easier. It's definitely a lot simpler, and I found that I prefer this both mentally and just when I'm handling my bills and not having to send out my income to all these people asking for my money because I owe them a debt. A very similar frugal habit to avoiding debt is owning my own car outright. So I purchased this last car for the first time without a loan. I bought a car in cash in 2020, and I have had 4 years now of no car payments, and it's been amazing. I'll be honest, I didn't know how it would feel with that, but not having a car payment has been pretty awesome. Most people, honestly, especially in the US, buy a car, they have a car payment, it's super normal. We have always had car payments, and then they buy a new car and roll the car payment into the next one sometimes, and it just keeps growing and growing. The car prices in the world are insane right now. So like the average car price and then the average car payment per month has gone up so much. People are paying a ton of money per month for their cars. And that's obviously maybe not the most frugal choice. If you're gonna have a car payment, try to keep it lower on the lower end. But honestly, explore if you can have a car that's paid off. It can be difficult to pay off that car loan or to buy a car in cash. Maybe you have to downsize a little, maybe not get the car you want. Personally, my car is not like my dream car or anything like that. It's not like the most amazing car, but it works really well. It has no problems. It gets me to where I need to go, and it's paid off and keeps my life super simple without having that car payment. If you can pay off your car or buy a car in cash, you're gonna limit the number of payments you have going out every month, and that just keeps your life simple. And this frugal living habit has made my life simple and super easy. Another frugal living habit that I have kind of taken on in my own life that doesn't get talked about too much is being adaptable. Having the ability to adapt to whatever situation comes your way is a incredibly frugal mindset. And it's something that we often don't talk about enough in in personal finance because we pretend that the current situation that we have is the situation we're always going to have, and that is rarely the case. Life is going to throw you curveballs and life is going to change. The only constant about life is that it is going to change. You will be in a different situation next year than you are today, likely. You're going to be in a very different situation 5, 10, 30 years from now. And unfortunately, in the personal finance world, we all try to plan like our lives like it's never going to change. And that is not how things go. Being a frugal person means you're able to adapt to those changes that come while still keeping the frugal mindset that you've had in place. So maybe you have a car that just completely breaks down and you have to replace it. When that happens, obviously your car expenses are going to change. Maybe you do have to get a car payment, but instead of going out and buying a brand new car that's the best car ever, that's amazing, you look at your down payment that you have, you look at the car that you have, you look at what you have to roll into that, and you're able to kind of shop around, find a better deal, and get the lowest car payment possible that you can. So you're able to spend less, you're able to have less of a monthly bill, even though your bill had to go up. You had to make a change. You need a car to get to work. You have to do that. But you're able to take the mindset that you had, still apply it to the new situation, and you're able to make a better choice. And then you can pay your car down faster because you have a lower amount owed. This is just something that is really important because your life is going to change. You're going to have new situations. You're going to have new factors coming in and changing things up. But if you're adaptable and you keep the same mindset, you're able to work around those changes and still stick to the plan or the mindset that is going to get you where you want to go. Another frugal living habit that I've adopted is defining my own success. So the typical success, can look like a fancy job title, money, lots of money, accolades from your peers. You think of the person that has landed on the list of 40 under 40 in your city, the person that is just killing it in their career, making so much money, and maybe that's not the right definition for you. And maybe yours looks a little bit different as a frugal person. Maybe yours is making less money, but able to spend more time with their kids. Maybe it is not pursuing a really time-consuming career, but instead choosing a less stressful and less consuming path where you go to work at 9, you clock out at 5, and you go home and you don't take your work with you. This is realizing that sometimes those higher paid jobs also come with a lot more stress, and they come with a lot more pressure to spend money to look like you fit in. They come with the pressure to buy a nicer house, to own a nicer car, to spend more money in all areas of your life to fit into the image of what you should look like. Sometimes defining your own success is realizing that that's not for you. And that's just not something that you want to have. Or maybe it's also getting to that position, but realizing that you don't have to buy into that whole pressure to look a certain way. You can do the job without all of the extra trappings that your peers feel like they have to have. Maybe you are the top of the food chain in your career, but you are deciding, I'm not going to buy the nicer car. I'm not going to have the huge house. I'm going to spend money where I want to and for what makes sense in my own life, and that is going to be good enough. Basically, defining your own success means you are letting go of the superficial need to show off your success because you've decided what's important to you and you're going to spend your money on those things. And that is a super frugal habit to have in your own life because you're never going to be able to keep up with what others think you should have or the keeping up with the Joneses. So you look a certain way of success. So you look a certain style and metric of success to others. That bar is always going to be changing. There's always more that you can buy to show off. So defining your own success, whether it's how you work, where you work, what you look like when you go to work, that is super important and something that you should definitely spend time on if you want to be a successful frugal person. And the final frugal habit that has really honestly helped me change my own life is practicing contentment. And this one's super important because having contentment for the things that you already have in your life allows you to be frugal in so many different ways. Loving the stuff you have, loving the people that you have in your life is incredibly important if you want to be a frugal person and find financial freedom through that. A lot of people choose to go buy more things, buy nice things because they are chasing that feeling of contentment. And if you are chasing the feeling, you're never going to be happy with what you have. There's always more to buy. There's always more ways to spend money. You have to really practice and develop this. It's the same with gratitude. You basically have to work on it and kind of teach your brain how to accept being content with what you have. This is not something that I've done overnight. This has taken therapy. This has taken work. This has taken like writing things out for me. This has taken a lot of effort, honestly. This is probably the one that has been the hardest for me, finding contentment with what I have, because I've always been a person that wants to strive for more and wants just more out of life. And it's been really hard, honestly, to accept what I have and accept that I am content and happy with what I have. But once you do that, it's amazing how your mindset overall can change and how you realize you don't need to spend as much money because you are happy with what you have and you don't need to be constantly chasing things. And that has saved me so much money in my own life. Over the years, I've saved thousands of dollars because I've learned how to practice contentment and been happy and content with what I already have. So if you don't have that feeling of contentment, I definitely recommend working on it. But if you haven't found a way to feel content with what you have and you feel like you're always chasing and using money to spend to try to buy that feeling, highly recommend you work on this, if nothing else on this list. It truly does make your life a lot easier when you're content with what you already have. You're able to just accept what you have and be happy with it, and it makes life so easy. So those are the 10 frugal living habits that I've implemented in my own life to make my own life easier. It's really changed my life a lot, even though I'm not naturally frugal or don't consider myself frugal. These habits have been super helpful in giving me the life that I want and putting me on the path to financial freedom. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. Maybe you can implement one of these in your own life and push yourself a little bit further toward your own financial success. Definitely check out this next video and I'll see you over there.